When Elon Musk's hand hovered over a chess piece in December 2025, 3,000 people in an ice-cold building in Iceland stopped breathing. Across from him sat Levon Aronian, one of the greatest chess players alive. This wasn't just any game. 50 million people around the world were watching on their screens. Elon's fingers shook slightly as he reached for his king. 6 months earlier, none of this seemed possible. Elon had been eating a boring turkey sandwich at his SpaceX office when he saw an angry tweet from Levon. The chess grandmaster was upset because Elon's company had helped build a computer program that crushed 3 chess champions in 1 week. The computer made these masters look like beginners. Levon felt insulted. He felt like human thinking was dying. So Levon tweeted a challenge that changed everything. Play me, a Musk. No computers, just your brain against mine. Or are you afraid? Elon could have ignored it. He could have laughed it off. But something inside him made him type back, I accept. The problem was simple, but terrifying. Levon was rated 2,750 in chess, one of the top 20 players on planet Earth. Elon? He hadn't played serious chess since he was a kid in South Africa. He was maybe rated 1,400. That's like a high school basketball player challenging LeBron James. Everyone told Elon he would embarrass himself. His own mother begged him not to do it. His brother said he was crazy. But Elon had 6 months to train. 6 months to learn how to think like a grandmaster. 6 months to prove that a human mind could still do something incredible. He found a teacher named Maurice Ashley, the first black chess grandmaster in history, and they trained in secret. Every single day, 6 hours on weekends, 2 hours on weekdays. Elon studied until his hand cramped from taking notes. He played thousands of practice games. He lost most of them. But slowly, painfully, he got better. Meanwhile, Levon was preparing too. But he had a secret that connected him to Elon in a way nobody knew. A secret from 32 years ago that would change everything about why this match really mattered. December 15th arrived. Reykjavik, Iceland. The beautiful glass concert hall called Harpa was packed with 3,000 people. Tickets cost up to $5,000. The entire world was watching. This was the biggest chess match in modern history, and it wasn't even for a championship. The game began. Move after move. Levon pushed forward with his pieces like an artist painting a masterpiece. Elon defended carefully, finding moves that kept him alive even when the position looked hopeless. Hours passed, 6 hours, then 7. Both men were soaked with sweat. Both were exhausted beyond belief. Then came move 64. The position looked terrible for Elon. Levon had an extra pawn about to become a queen. Every computer in the world said Levon was winning. Every expert said Elon should give up. But Elon saw something nobody else saw. A move that looked completely insane. A move that seemed to help his opponent. A move that broke every rule in the chess books. He picked up his king. The room went silent. 3,000 people held their breath. 50 million people around the world leaned closer to their screens. Elon moved his king to GE6. The crowd gasped. The commentators couldn't believe what they were seeing. It looked like Elon had just given up, like he had made the worst move possible. But then something incredible happened. Something that made Levon's face turn white. Something that made the computer evaluations swing wildly. The move that looked like suicide was actually genius. And when it was all over, when the final handshake happened, Levon showed Elon an old photograph. A photograph from 1993. A photograph that revealed why this match was never really about chess at all. What was in that photograph? What secret connected these two men across 32 years? And what did that final move really mean? Watch this whole video to find out. Because this isn't just a story about chess. It's a story about what makes us human. About why our minds still matter in a world full of computers. And about how one act of kindness can echo across decades and change everything. The answer will surprise you. The answer will make you see chess, technology, and human connection in a completely new way. Stay with me. This story is just beginning. June 15th, 2025. Elon Musk sat in his office at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. The morning sun came through the window. Outside, a Starship rocket stood tall against the blue sky. Elon had just finished a 3-hour meeting about sending supplies to Mars. His brain hurt from thinking about fuel calculations and landing systems. He opened his phone and checked Twitter. He still called it Twitter, even though he owned it and had changed the name to X. Old habits die hard. That's when he saw the tweet that would change everything. Levon Aronian, the famous chess grandmaster from Armenia, had posted something unusual. Levon was normally quiet and polite online. He didn't start fights. He didn't post angry messages. But today was different. The tweet said, "Tech billionaires think AI makes them smart. But can they think for themselves? Real intelligence doesn't need a computer chip." Elon read it twice. He knew exactly what Levon was talking about. Last week, an AI program called Prometheus 7 had beaten 3 chess grandmasters in a row. Elon's company, Neuralink, had helped build part of that program. The AI had crushed the grandmasters easily. It made the games look simple, like a grown-up playing against children. Levon had been one of those grandmasters. He had lost in just 23 moves. The chess world was shocked. Levon Aronian was rated 2,750, one of the top 20 players on Earth. But the computer had made him look silly. Elon understood why Levon was upset. Chess players spent their whole lives training their brains. They studied for hours every day. They memorized thousands of games. And now, computers could beat them without trying hard. But something about Levon's tweet bothered Elon. The tone felt personal. Like Levon was saying Elon couldn't think for himself. Elon picked up his sad turkey sandwich from lunch. It was cold now. He took a bite and thought about his response. He was tired. His back hurt from sitting too long. Maybe he shouldn't reply at all. But Elon had never been good at staying quiet. He typed, "Chess is just pattern recognition. Computers do it better. Humans do it slower. Facts." He pressed send. Then he finished his sandwich and went back to looking at rocket designs. 17 minutes passed. Elon had already forgotten about the tweet. Then his phone started buzzing like crazy. Notifications filled his screen. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Levon had replied, "Then prove you understand patterns, Mr. Musk. Play me. One match. No computers. Just your brain against mine. Or are you afraid?" Elon stared at his phone. His heart beat faster. This was a direct challenge, in front of the entire world. Within minutes, the internet exploded. The hashtag Musk v. Aronian started trending. First in America, then in Europe, then everywhere. Reddit had 200 discussion threads in an hour. Chess websites crashed from too much traffic. Sports betting sites started taking bets on who would win. Elon's phone rang. It was his mother, May Musk. She was calling from her apartment in New York City. "Elon, I saw the tweet," she said. Her voice was worried. "Don't do this. You haven't played serious chess in years." "I play online sometimes," Elon said. "Against who? Random teenagers?" "Against various opponents." "Elon, Listen to me. Levon Aronian is a grandmaster, one of the best in the world. This isn't like business. You can't just work harder and win. Chess takes years of training. I know, Mom. Then why are you even considering this? Elon looked out the window at the rocket. He thought about all the times people had told him something was impossible. Reusable rockets? Impossible. Electric cars that people actually want? Impossible. Digging tunnels under cities? Impossible. I haven't decided yet, he told his mother. But in his heart, he already knew what he would do. His brother Kimball called next. You're going to embarrass yourself, Kimball said bluntly. Levon is literally one of the top 20 players on the planet. You're good at chess for a CEO, but you're not Grandmaster level. Not even close. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Elon said. I'm being realistic. This is different from business, Elon. In business, you can hire the best people and lead them. In chess, it's just you and the board. Your brain against his. And his brain has been training for this his entire life. Elon hung up. He sat alone in his office as the sun set over California. Orange light filled the room. Outside, workers were preparing the rocket for a test tomorrow. They believed in something that had seemed impossible, and now it was real. At 11:47 p.m., Elon made his decision. He opened Twitter and typed, "I accept. 6 months from now. Reykjavik, Iceland. No computers during the match. Winner donates $5 million to chess education for kids who can't afford it." Levon's response came in 30 seconds. Agreed. Prepare to lose, Mr. Musk. The match was set for December 15, 2025. Elon had exactly 183 days to learn how to beat one of the greatest chess minds on Earth. He looked at the Starship rocket outside his window one more time. Then he opened his laptop and started searching for a chess coach. He was going to need help. A lot of help. June 16, 2025. Elon woke up at 4:30 a.m. in his small house in Boca Chica, Texas. He lived near the SpaceX launch facility in a tiny house that cost only $50,000. Elon didn't care about fancy things. He cared about rockets, and now, apparently, chess. He had barely slept 3 hours. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw chess pieces moving across a board. His brain kept replaying games from when he was young, growing up in Pretoria, South Africa. Back then, chess had been his escape from a difficult childhood. His father had been cruel. Home had not been safe. But chess? Chess made sense. Chess had rules. Chess was fair. Elon made strong coffee in his small kitchen. The sun wasn't up yet. He opened his laptop and stared at the screen. He needed a coach. But not just any coach. He needed someone who understood both chess and pressure. Someone who could teach him in secret, away from the media circus that was already building. He thought about the obvious choices. Magnus Carlsen? No, too famous. Hikaru Nakamura? No, he'd stream it online. Fabiano Caruana? No, he was too busy with his own tournaments. Then Elon remembered something. So a TED Talk he had watched 2 years ago during a flight to Berlin. The speaker was Maurice Ashley, the first African-American chess grandmaster in history. Maurice had earned his title in 1999, breaking barriers in a sport that had been dominated by white Europeans for over a century. But that wasn't why Elon remembered the talk. Maurice had said something that stuck with him. Chess isn't about memorizing moves. It's about understanding struggle. Every game is a story of two minds trying to solve an impossible puzzle together. When you lose, you learn who you really are. Elon grabbed his phone. It was 7:30 a.m. in New York, where Morris lived. He found Maurice's contact information through a Chess Federation database and called. The phone rang 4 times. Then a warm, deep voice answered. "This is Maurice." "Mr. Ashley, this is Elon Musk. I know this is random, but I saw the tweet," Maurice interrupted. He was laughing, not a mean laugh, a genuine, warm laugh. The whole world saw the tweet. "Will you help me not look like a complete idiot?" There was a pause. Elon heard traffic sounds in the background. Maurice was probably walking somewhere in Manhattan. "That depends," Maurice said. "Why did you really accept this challenge? And don't give me some PR answer. Tell me the truth." Elon looked out his window. The Texas sky was turning pink with sunrise. A roadrunner bird ran across his yard, chasing something. "Because someone told me I couldn't do something with just my own mind," Elon said quietly. "Everything I build with teams. Thousands of engineers, designers, brilliant people. But this is just me, my brain, my choices. And maybe I need to prove to myself that I can still think, really think, without algorithms or assistance or anything else." Maurice was quiet for a long moment. "Good answer," he finally said. "Okay, I'll train you. But you have to follow my rules exactly. No cutting corners. No using your company resources to build some chess-studying AI. No special technology. Just you, a chessboard, and hard work. Can you do that?" "Yes." "First lesson, Elon. You're going to lose 1,000 games before you get better. Your ego is going to hurt. You're going to feel stupid. You're going to want to quit. Are you ready for that?" Elon thought about all the rocket explosions, all the times SpaceX had failed before finally landing a booster back on Earth. All the people who had laughed at him. All the pain of learning. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I'm ready." "Then meet me in Austin in 4 days. I have a place we can train in private. Bring clothes for 2 weeks. Tell your companies you're working on a personal project. Don't tell anyone what you're really doing." "Thank you, Maurice." "Don't thank me yet. Thank me in December if you survive more than 20 moves against Levon." Maurice hung up. Elon sat in his kitchen as the sun rose fully over Texas. He felt nervous and excited at the same time. He opened a chess app on his laptop and started playing against the computer. He set it to an easy level first, just to remember how the pieces moved, how the strategy worked. He lost the first game in 18 moves. He lost the second game in 15 moves. He won the third game, but only because the computer was set to beginner mode. Elon looked at the losses and felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like a student again, not a CEO, not a billionaire, not the founder of multiple companies, just a student who had a lot to learn. June 20th, 2025. Elon arrived at a small cottage outside Austin, Texas. The cottage belonged to Maurice's sister and sat on 5 acres of land surrounded by oak trees. No neighbors, no paparazzi. Perfect privacy. Maurice met him at the door. He was 59 years old, with kind eyes and strong hands. He dressed simply, jeans and a button-up shirt. He carried himself with quiet confidence. "Welcome to Chess Boot Camp," Maurice said, shaking Elon's hand. Inside, the cottage was simple. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, and a living room that Maurice had converted into a chess training center. There were 3 chess boards set up, 2 shelves full of chess books, a computer for analyzing games, but Maurice had covered the screen with tape. "No computer analysis for the first week," Maurice explained. "You need to learn to trust your own eyes and your own brain. Computers make people lazy. They stop thinking for themselves." The first day was humbling. Maurice sat across from Elon at the board and said, Let's see what you remember. They played a game. Maurice beat Elon in 14 moves. They played again. Maurice beat him in 12 moves. They played a third time. Maurice beat him in 16 moves. Elon felt frustrated. His face turned red. He wanted to argue, to explain, to defend himself. But Maurice just smiled gently. "You're thinking like an engineer," Maurice said after the fifth loss. "You're trying to calculate everything. You're trying to see every possible move and pick the best one through pure logic. But chess isn't always about calculation. Sometimes it's about feeling, about understanding what your opponent wants, about sensing danger before you can prove it mathematically." "That sounds like psychology, not chess," Elon said. "Chess is psychology," Maurice replied. "Every move tells a story. Every position reveals something about how your opponent thinks. Levon Aronian, he's a poet. He plays beautiful, aggressive chess. He loves creating complications. He'll try to outthink you, but more than that, he'll try to make you doubt yourself. He'll create positions where the right move feels wrong, where safety feels cowardly. And if you don't understand that, you'll lose before move 20. They spent the rest of the day studying Levon's games. Maurice had printed out 50 of Levon's most important matches. They went through them slowly, move by move. Levon favored the king's Indian defense when playing with black pieces, a fighting opening full of tactics and complications. When playing white, Levon preferred 1d4, the queen's pawn opening, leading to strategic battles. Elon took notes like a college student, his hand cramped from writing. He filled an entire notebook in one day. That night, Elon couldn't sleep. His brain was too full of chess patterns. He got up at 2 a.m. and found Maurice sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea. "Can't sleep?" Maurice asked. "Too much thinking." "Good. That means your brain is working. Here." Maurice handed him a cup of chamomile tea. "Drink this, then go back to bed. Tomorrow we work on tactics. The day after, strategy. The day after that, end games. We have 6 months, Elon, but you need sleep or your brain won't absorb anything." Elon drank the tea. It tasted like flowers and honey. "Maurice, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you think I can actually do this? Be honest." Maurice looked at him with those kind, serious eyes. "I think you can survive. I think you can make it competitive. Can you beat Levon? Probably not. He spent 40 years training his brain for chess. You have 6 months. But can you show the world that a human mind can learn, can grow, can face something difficult without giving up? Yes, I believe you can do that. And maybe that's more important than winning anyway." Elon nodded. He went back to bed and finally fell asleep. His dreams were filled with knights and bishops, queens and rooks, and a board that stretched out forever, full of infinite possibilities. October 20-25. 4 months into training. Across the world in Yerevan, Armenia, Levon Aronian sat in his apartment surrounded by chess books. But he wasn't studying chess. He was staring at an old photograph. The photograph was from 1993. 32 years ago, it showed a chess tournament in Johannesburg, South Africa. In the picture, a young Armenian man stood holding a silver trophy. He had dark hair and a proud smile. Next to him stood a skinny 22-year-old with nervous eyes and messy hair. That young man was Elon Musk. Levon had found this photograph 2 months ago, in July, while cleaning out his mother's apartment. His mother, Shushan Aronian, had died in April 2025. She was 78 years old. Losing her had broken something inside Levon. For weeks, he couldn't play chess at all. But the board looked meaningless, just wood and pieces. But then he had started sorting through her belongings. Old letters, old photos, memories from a lifetime. That's when he found the album from 1993. The young man in the photo with the trophy was Levon's cousin, Areg Aronian. Areg had been 24 years old in that picture. He had traveled to South Africa for a chess tournament, one of the first international trips for a young Armenian player after the Soviet Union collapsed. Next to the photograph was a letter. Levon recognized Areg's handwriting immediately, even though Areg had been dead for 30 years. The letter was addressed to Levon's mother. It was dated August 15, 1993. Levon had read this letter at least 100 times now. He had it memorized, but he read it again anyway, slowly, letting each word sink in. Dear Aunt Shushan, I won the Johannesburg Open today. 64 players. I beat them all. But the most interesting game wasn't in the finals. It was in the semifinals against a young South African player named Elon. He just graduated from university. He studied physics and business. He played beautifully, Auntie, really beautifully. Not like a master, but with real imagination. I beat him, but it was close. Closer than the final match. After the game, he didn't leave angry like some players do when they lose. He stayed. We talked for 2 hours. He told me he's leaving South Africa soon, going to America. He said he wants to build things, important things, things that matter. He seemed sad about leaving home, but also relieved. He didn't say much about his family, but I could tell something was hard there. He said chess reminded him that problems have solutions if you think hard enough. He said the board was one place where things made sense. We walked to the bus station together. He carried my trophy bag even though he lost. Can you imagine? We talked about dreams, about what makes life worth living. He said he wanted to help humanity get to other planets someday. I laughed because it sounded impossible. But he didn't laugh. He was completely serious. He has this look in his eyes, Auntie, like fire that won't go out no matter how much wind blows on it. I hope he builds something amazing. I really do. I'm coming home next week. I miss Armenia. I miss you. I miss real lavash bread and korovats. South Africa is interesting, but it's not home. Love, Areg. Levon set the letter down carefully. His hands were shaking slightly. Areg had died in December 1995. A car accident on a snowy road outside Yerevan. He was only 26 years old. Levon had been just 13 then, still learning chess, still dreaming of becoming a grandmaster himself. Areg had been his hero, his inspiration, the reason Levon had dedicated his life to chess. Levon had never known about this connection to Elon Musk, never knew they had met, never knew Areg had seen something special in the young South African who would later become one of the most famous people on Earth. Levon's wife, Ariane, walked into the room. She was from California, with blonde hair and a warm smile. They had met at a chess tournament in St. Louis in 2017 and married a year later. She understood chess, understood the obsession it created, understood why her husband sometimes stared at positions for hours. "Oh, you're looking at that photo again," Ariane said gently. She sat down next to him on the couch. "I can't stop thinking about it," Levon admitted. "When Elon's AI destroyed us, destroyed me, I was so angry. I felt like chess was dying, like everything we worked for, everything we studied, everything we loved about the game was becoming meaningless. Just code, just algorithms, no soul." "I know," Ariane said. "But then I found this." Levon held up the photograph. "And I realized something. Elon used to understand. He used to know that chess was about more than winning, more than calculation. It was about being human, about thinking, about connecting with another person across a board. "So that's why you challenged him," Ariane said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, not to humiliate him, not really to beat him even. I wanted to remind him, remind both of us, that human minds still matter, that struggling with your own thoughts, making mistakes, finding beauty in complexity, that all of that matters more than any computer program." Ariane was quiet for a moment. Outside their window, Yerevan was beautiful in autumn. Golden leaves covered the streets. Mount Ararat was visible in the distance, its peak covered with early snow. "Are you going to tell him?" Ariane asked. "About Areg? About the connection?" Levon thought about this. He had been thinking about it for months now. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe during the match. Maybe after. Maybe never. I just want him to remember something he forgot. That chess isn't about humans versus machines. It's about humans being fully human." "And if you lose?" Ariane asked. Levon smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "Fine, then I lose. But at least I'll know I tried. I tried to bring back something beautiful that the world is forgetting." Meanwhile, halfway around the world, the match was becoming the biggest event in chess history. Iceland had offered to host it for free at Harpa Concert Hall, the beautiful glass building on the Reykjavik waterfront where World Chess Championships had been held before. For Iceland, a country of only 400,000 people, chess was almost a religion. Having Musk versus Aronian there was like hosting the Olympics. Corporate sponsors lined up offering millions. Amazon wanted streaming rights. Netflix wanted to make a documentary. Energy drink companies wanted their logos everywhere. But both Elon and Levon refused most of it. They agreed on simple terms. One classical chess game, the time control of 2 hours per player with 30-second increments, standard tournament rules, and absolutely no electronic devices allowed within 50 feet of the playing area. By November, ticket prices on the black market reached $15,000. Chess websites were crashing daily from traffic. Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura, the famous American streamer, announced he would provide live commentary alongside Garry Kasparov, the greatest player in chess history. Their streaming setup expected 50 million live viewers. Schools around the world were planning to show the match to students. Chess clubs reported membership increases of 300%. Amazon sold out of chess sets in 3 days. The game hadn't even been played yet, and it had already changed chess forever. Back in Armenia, Levon prepared quietly. His coach, Vladimir Akopian, himself a legendary grandmaster, helped him study Elon's playing style. They had found videos of Elon playing casual games online under anonymous accounts. Elon was improving fast, scary fast. His rating had gone from maybe 1,600 to over 1,900 in just 4 months. "He's learning at an incredible speed," Vladimir said in Armenian, watching a game Elon had played last week. "This is not normal improvement. He has a very good coach." "Maurice Ashley," Levon said. "I heard through the chess community. Probably the best teacher he could have found." "Are you worried?" "No," Levon said. But that wasn't entirely true. He was a little worried. Not about losing. He was still much stronger. But worried that the match wouldn't accomplish what he wanted. Worried that it would just become another spectacle. Another entertainment. And another thing for people to bet on and forget. He looked at Areg's photograph one more time. "I'm doing this for you," he whispered to the picture. "For everyone who believes chess is more than just moves. more than just winning. The photograph didn't answer, of course, but somehow, Levon felt his cousin would have understood. December was coming. The world was watching. And two men were preparing for a match that would mean something far deeper than either of them could fully explain. December 15th, 2025. The day had finally arrived. Elon's private jet landed at Keflavik Airport in Iceland at 6 a.m. local time. Outside the small airplane windows, everything was dark. This far north in December, the sun wouldn't rise until almost 11 a.m. And when it did rise, it would only stay up for about 4 hours before disappearing again. Iceland in winter was a land of endless darkness, broken only by brief moments of gray daylight. Elon stepped off the plane into freezing air. The wind hit his face like a slap. Snow covered everything: the runway, the buildings, the distant mountains. It was beautiful and harsh at the same time. Maurice Ashley was waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs. Maurice had flown in the day before to make sure everything was ready. "Did you sleep on the plane?" Maurice asked as they walked toward the terminal. "No." Elon looked terrible. His eyes had dark circles under them. His face was pale. He'd lost 15 pounds in the last 6 months from stress and forgetting to eat properly. "That's not good, Elon. You need rest." "I couldn't sleep. I kept playing through the game in my head. Different openings, different variations, but different possibilities. What if he plays the Najdorf Sicilian? What if he goes for the King's Indian? What if—" "Stop." Maurice put a hand on Elon's shoulder. They were standing in the quiet airport terminal now. A few people recognized Elon and took pictures with their phones, but mostly people left them alone. "Listen to me carefully. You've prepared enough. You've studied more in 6 months than most people study in 5 years. You've improved incredibly. Your rating went from 1,600 to 2,000. That's amazing progress." "But Levon is 2,750, Elon said quietly. "Yes, he's much stronger. We always knew that. But here's what matters. You've learned to think, really think. Not like a computer, not like an algorithm. Like a human being who understands that chess is about struggle and beauty and finding the best move even when you're scared. And that's what today is about. Not winning, understanding." Elon nodded, but his hands were shaking slightly. Not just from cold, from nerves, from pressure, from the weight of 3 billion people who would be watching or following this match online. 3 billion. If he lost badly, if Levon destroyed him in 20 moves, the internet would never let him forget it. Every business decision he made would be questioned. Can't even beat a chess player. Why should we trust him with rockets to Mars? They took a taxi to the hotel. The Reykjavik Centrum Hotel sat in the heart of the old city, near the harbor. It was the same hotel where Bobby Fischer had stayed during his famous 1972 World Championship match against Boris Spassky. That match had been during the Cold War. America versus the Soviet Union. Fischer had won and became a legend. Elon's room was simple: a bed, a desk, a window looking out at the dark ocean. He tried to rest but couldn't. His brain wouldn't turn off. He kept seeing chess positions, kept calculating variations, kept worrying. At noon, he gave up trying to sleep. He ordered room service, just soup and bread, but barely ate any of it. His stomach was in knots. Across town, Levon Aronian was having a very different morning. He had slept well. 8 hours. He woke up at 9 a.m. feeling calm. This surprised him a little. He had expected to be nervous, but instead, he felt peaceful, ready. He had breakfast with Ariane in their hotel room, scrambled eggs, fresh bread, strong coffee. They didn't talk much. Ariane understood that Levon needed quiet before important games. She held his hand across the table and smiled at him. That was enough. Levon's coach, Vladimir Akopian, arrived at 10:30 a.m. They did some light preparation, reviewing a few opening lines, discussing general strategy, but not too much. Levon's preparation was finished, had been finished for weeks. Now it was just about playing, about trusting his training, about letting his mind do what it had been trained to do for 40 years. "How do you feel?" Vladimir asked in Armenian. "Good," Levon said. "Peaceful. This match is important, but not in the way people think. It's not about me beating Elon. It's about reminding everyone, including myself, why we play this game." Vladimir smiled. He was 60 years old and had known Levon since Levon was a young boy learning chess in Yerevan. "Your cousin Areg would be proud of you today." Levon touched the photograph in his jacket pocket. He had brought it with him. Areg's face smiling next to young Elon in Johannesburg, 1993. Maybe he would show it to Elon after the match. Maybe not. Time would tell. At 12:30 p.m., both players left their hotels and headed to Harpa Concert Hall. Harpa was one of the most beautiful buildings in Iceland. It sat right on the waterfront, made entirely of glass panels that reflected the ocean and sky. The glass was specially designed. Each panel was a different color, creating a shimmering effect like the northern lights. In the brief December daylight, the building glowed with blues and greens and purples. Inside, 3,000 seats were completely full. People had traveled from 80 different countries to be here. Tickets had cost anywhere from $500 to $5,000, with all money going to chess education charities. Security was incredibly tight. Everyone had been screened like at an airport. No phones, no cameras, no electronic devices of any kind. The rules were strict. Anyone caught with a device would be removed immediately. The chessboard sat on a raised stage in the center of the hall. Spotlights made the wooden pieces glow golden. It was a classical Staunton design, the official style used in world championships for over 150 years. The pieces were weighted, carved from ebony and boxwood, beautiful and solid. The board itself was made of maple and walnut, each square exactly 2 inches. At 12:50 p.m., Elon arrived. He entered through a side door, away from the crowd. Maurice walked with him. They stood backstage, listening to the murmur of 3,000 people talking in hushed, excited voices. "Remember," Maurice said quietly, "play your game. Don't try to be Levon. Be yourself. Trust your preparation. And breathe. Just breathe." Elon nodded. He wore a simple black suit with no tie. He looked thin and nervous, but determined. At 12:55 p.m., Levon arrived from the other side. Vladimir gave him a quick hug. Ariane kissed his cheek. "Be you," she whispered. "Just be you." At 1 p.m. exactly, the arbiter, a stern Icelandic man named Sigurdur Olafsson, walked to the center of the stage. The crowd immediately went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sigurdur said in English with a thick Icelandic accent, "welcome to this historic match. Today, Mr. Levon Aronian, Grandmaster, will play white against Mr. Elon Musk. This is a classical game with 2 hours per player and a 30-second increment per move. Standard FIDE rules apply. Let us begin." Elon entered from stage left, and the applause was enormous, like thunder. People stood up. Cameras, official ones for the broadcast, flashed. Elon walked slowly to the board, his heart pounding so hard he thought everyone could hear it. Levon entered from stage right. More applause, equally loud. He walked with quiet confidence, smiling gently at the crowd. When he reached the board, he and Elon shook hands. Levon's grip was firm but not aggressive. Up close, Elon noticed Levon's eyes. They were kind, intelligent. Not the eyes of an enemy. The eyes of someone who understood something important. "Good luck," Levon said softly. "You too," Elon replied. They sat down. The board between them looked infinite. 64 squares, 32 pieces, unlimited possibilities. Sigurdur stood between them. "Gentlemen, you have 2 minutes before the clock starts. I'll use this time as you wish." Those 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. The silence in the hall was complete. Outside, snow had started falling heavily. Inside, 3,000 people held their breath. Around the world, 50 million people watched on streams and television. In California, Elon's children watched with their grandmother May. In Armenia, schools had been closed so children could watch their hero, Levon. In chess clubs, from Moscow to Mumbai, from New York to Tokyo, people gathered around screens. Maurice stood backstage, his hands clasped together, praying to a god he wasn't entirely sure existed. Ariane sat in the front row, her heart full of love and worry. The clock started. Levon reached forward. His hand was steady. He picked up his king's pawn, the pawn directly in front of his king. He moved it forward 2 squares. A 1e4, the most classical opening in chess. The king's pawn opening. Aggressive, clear, beautiful. Elon looked at the board. He had studied this moment for 6 months. He knew exactly what he would play. His hand moved forward. He picked up his c-pawn, the pawn on the queen's side. He pushed it forward 2 squares. 1, c5, the Sicilian defense. The sharpest, most fighting response to 1e4. The opening that says, "I'm not here to draw. I'm here to fight." Levon smiled slightly. He had predicted this. The Sicilian was Elon's favorite defense. They had studied it together through analysis of Elon's online games. The game had begun. 2 minds, separated by a board, connected by pieces, about to create something that neither algorithms nor computers could fully understand. Something human, something beautiful, something that would remind the world why thinking, real, deep, struggling human thinking, still mattered. Move by move, the story was about to unfold. The first 10 moves came quickly. Both players moved with confidence. These were moves they had studied thousands of times. Opening theory, lines that had been played by grandmasters for decades. The Sicilian defense, Rossolimo variation. Levon, playing the white pieces, pushed his pawns forward, controlling the center of the board. Elon responded carefully, developing his knights and bishops to good squares. The crowd watched in complete silence. In the commentary booth high above the stage, Hikaru Nakamura spoke softly into his microphone. "So far, this is all normal, all theory. Both players are still in their preparation. The real game hasn't started yet." Garry Kasparov nodded beside him, and the legendary former world champion leaned forward, studying the position on his screen. Elon is playing solidly. No mistakes yet, but the test will come soon. Levon will take the game out of theory into positions where Elon has to think for himself. Move 11 arrived. This was where theory ended. This was where the real chess began. Levon sat back in his chair. He looked at the position for 3 full minutes. His hand hovered over his pieces. Then, instead of playing the normal move that computers recommended, ND5, putting his knight in the center, Levon did something strange. He moved his knight backward to F1, a square that looked passive, almost weak. The crowd murmured quietly. In the commentary booth, Hikaru's eyebrows shot up. What? That's unusual. NF1 looks bad. The knight was fine where it was. Why move it backward? Kasparov was quiet. His eyes narrowed. He was calculating furiously. Wait, this is not about the knight. This is about the dark squares. Levon is preparing NG3. The knight will go to G3, then maybe to F5 or H5. This is very deep, very artistic. But is it the strongest move? I don't think so. On stage, Elon stared at the knight on F1. Something about it bothered him. Not because it was dangerous, because it was familiar. That knight placement. That backward move that looked passive but was actually preparing something beautiful. Where had he seen this before? A flash of memory hit him. 1993. Johannesburg, the University of the Witwatersrand. A small tournament room that smelled like old books and coffee. He was 22 years old, young and nervous, playing in the semi-final round against a young Armenian player. And that player had moved his knight backward, just like this, creating positions that looked random, but were actually poetry. Tactical poetry. Elon's heart started beating faster. He looked up at Levon. Levon was watching him with those intelligent, kind eyes. Eyes that seemed to know something. To be asking a silent question. Do you remember? Elon couldn't ask. Speaking during a chess game was against the rules, but his hands were shaking slightly as he reached forward to move his own piece. He spent 12 minutes thinking. That was a lot of time in a chess game, especially this early. The clock was ticking. He had to move. Finally, he pushed his c-pawn forward. 11. c4. Taking space on the queen side. Trying to create his own threats. Levon responded immediately. His hand moved quickly, confidently. He played NG3. And the knight bounced forward to that strange square, just like in the memory. Just like in Johannesburg 32 years ago. That's when Elon knew for certain. This wasn't coincidence. Levon was playing moves from that old game. But why? What did it mean? The game continued. Move after move. Both players were deep in concentration now. The position on the board became incredibly complex. Pieces tangled together. Pawns locked against each other. Threats existed on both sides of the board. White threatening on the king side, black threatening on the queen side. By move 20, Elon had used 50 minutes of his 2 hours. Levon had used only 35 minutes. Time was becoming a factor. Move 25 arrived. The position was sharp, dangerous. One mistake from either player would be fatal. Then Levon made a move that shocked everyone watching. He lifted his queen, his most powerful piece, and moved it to d1. And then, in a series of forcing moves, he traded his queen for Elon's rook and knight. A queen sacrifice. The crowd gasped. You could hear 3,000 people inhale at once. In the commentary booth, Hikaru stood up from his chair. What? He just gave up his queen. Elon has a queen now and Levon doesn't. The computer says black is winning. This makes no sense. But Kasparov's face was different. His eyes were distant, calculating deeply. After 30 seconds of silence, he spoke. Wait, look. Look at the knight on g3. Look at the bishop on c4. Look at the white rook that's about to come to e1. Levon isn't playing for material. He's playing for checkmate. This is not about pieces. This is about the king. Elon's king is weak. The white pieces are coordinating like a symphony orchestra. Every piece has a purpose. This is brilliant. This is art. On stage, Elon saw it too. His stomach dropped. The queen didn't matter. Material didn't matter. Only the king mattered. and his king was in terrible danger. He had a choice. He could try to defend passively, moving his king to safety, giving back material to survive. Or he could counterattack, try to create his own threats against Laven's king. Maurice had taught him, when you're in trouble, don't just defend. Look for counterplay. Look for your own threats. Make your opponent solve problems too. Elon defended precisely. Move after move, he found the only moves that kept him alive. His rook went to d8, protecting the back rank. His knight jumped to f6, blocking one diagonal. His bishop retreated to e7, covering key squares. Each move he found was the only move that worked. The thread he was walking was impossibly thin. One mistake, one moment of panic, and Laven's pieces would crash through and deliver checkmate. The hall was completely silent now. Even the sound of breathing seemed too loud. Snow fell harder outside the glass walls of Harpa. The brief winter daylight had come and gone. Now it was dark again, and inside this hall, two minds were locked in battle. Move 30, move 33, move 35. Sweat dripped down Elon's face. His shirt was soaked under his suit jacket. But his hands were steady now. The fear had been replaced by something else. Focus. Complete focus. Every part of his brain was engaged. This was what Maurice had trained him for. This moment. This pressure. Move 38. Move 40. They reached time control. Both players got 30 extra minutes added to their clocks, as per tournament rules. But both were exhausted. 6 hours had passed. 6 hours of thinking, calculating, struggling. It felt like climbing a mountain with no top. Laven looked tired. His face was pale. His hands, which had been so steady at the beginning, were trembling slightly now. But his eyes were still sharp, still calculating. Elon looked worse. He had lost his suit jacket somewhere around move 30. His shirt was wrinkled and damp. His hair was messy, but he was still fighting, still finding moves, still refusing to give up. The position started to simplify. Pieces traded off the board. Laven's attacking pieces disappeared. Elon's defending pieces disappeared. Queens were long gone. Rooks traded. Knights and bishops left the board one by one. By move 50, only kings and pawns remained. An end game. Pure calculation. Pure technique. This was Elon's weakness. Maurice had warned him many times. End games are where grandmasters are strongest. They've memorized thousands of positions. They know every trick, every trap, every technique. This is where you're most vulnerable. Laven had a tiny advantage. One extra pawn. In chess, sometimes one pawn makes all the difference. It was like a basketball game decided by 1 point, a race decided by 1 second. But the position was still incredibly complex. Pawn endgames looked simple, but were actually some of the hardest positions to play perfectly. Every move mattered. Every square mattered. Move 56. Move 59. Move 61. Elon's clock showed 17 minutes left. Laven had 23 minutes. Time was running out for both players, but especially for Elon. Then, on move 64, something happened. Elon looked at the position and saw something that no one else in the world had seen. Not the commentators analyzing with computers. Not the grandmasters watching in the audience. Not even Laven. It was a move that looked completely wrong. A move that seemed to help Laven. A move that broke every rule of endgame theory. But in Elon's mind, he saw the truth. He saw a pattern that wasn't in any textbook. He saw a possibility that couldn't be calculated. It had to be felt, understood, believed in. His hand moved toward his king. The entire world watched. The entire world held its breath. This was the moment. The move that would either be remembered as genius or as the worst blunder in chess history. The position looked hopeless for Elon. Everyone watching knew it. And the computers knew it. The grandmasters knew it. Levon's white king stood on a 5, powerful and active, controlling the center of the board. His h-pawn was on h5, just 3 squares away from reaching the end of the board where it would transform into a queen. Levon also had another pawn on a 3, far on the other side. Elon's black king sat on g7, looking tired and defensive. He had only 2 pawns left, one on f7, one on b6. That was all. Every chess engine in the world showed the same evaluation. White is winning. Plus 2.5 advantage. In endgame terms, that meant almost certainly winning. Levon should win this. He just needed to push his h-pawn forward, promote it to a queen, and checkmate would follow within a few moves. Elon had 43 minutes left on his clock. Levon had 31 minutes. Both men looked like they had run a marathon. 7 hours of chess. 7 hours of pure mental warfare. Their shirts were soaked with sweat. Their eyes were red from concentration. Their hands trembled from exhaustion. In the commentary booth, Hikaru Nakamura was explaining to millions of viewers. Okay, this is bad for Elon, really bad. Levon just needs to play kg6, supporting his h-pawn, then push h6, h7, h8 queen. Black can't stop it. The black king is too far away. Elon should probably resign soon and save himself the pain. Garry Kasparov nodded slowly, but said nothing. His eyes were locked on the board. Something felt different. He couldn't explain it, but something in the position was strange. Unresolved. On stage, Elon stared at the board. His vision was blurry from exhaustion. He rubbed his eyes, focused again. The position looked terrible. Everything in his training told him to try to stop Levon's h-pawn. That was the logical move, the necessary move. Move his king to f6, trying to catch the pawn before it was too late. But then something clicked in Elon's mind. A flash of understanding. A pattern that wasn't in any textbook. It was something Morris had told him during training back in August, during a late-night session when they were both exhausted. Chess isn't always about defending what's being attacked, Maurice had said. Sometimes the best defense is a counterattack. Sometimes you have to ignore what your opponent is threatening and create your own threat. It's scary. It feels wrong. But that's when chess becomes art instead of just calculation. Elon looked at his b-pawn on b6. It was far from the action. It seemed irrelevant compared to Levon's dangerous h-pawn that was about to become a queen. But what if it wasn't irrelevant? Elon started calculating. Deep calculation. The kind that hurt his brain. If he moved his king away from stopping the h-pawn, if he actually let Levon push h6 and h7 and make a queen, what would happen? His b-pawn could run fast. b5, then b4, then b3, then b2. While Levon's new queen was being born on h8, Elon's pawn would be racing toward b1, where it too would become a queen. But could his king support it? Could his king get to the right squares to protect the pawn and fight against Levon's pieces? The calculation was impossibly complex. 10 moves deep, 15 moves deep, 20 moves deep. Positions where one wrong square meant loss, but one right square meant draw. Elon calculated for 11 minutes, and his clock ticked down. 32 minutes left. 31. 30. Finally, he saw it. The whole line. The complete pattern. It was like a symphony where every note had to be perfect, or the whole thing collapsed. But if it worked, if every move was exactly right, he could hold a draw. His hand moved to his king. Every person in the hall leaned forward. 3,000 people. 50 million watching worldwide. Everyone expecting him to play KF6, trying to stop the pawn. Instead, Elon picked up his king and moved it to GE6, moving away from the H-pawn, not stopping it at all, actually helping it advance. The room gasped. The sound was like wind rushing through trees. In the commentary booth, Hikaru's voice cracked. "What? That makes no sense. He just let the pawn go. Levon gets a free queen now. That's resignation. How Elon just gave up." But Garry Kasparov went completely still. His eyes widened. His hands started moving frantically over his analysis board, calculating variations at incredible speed. After 10 seconds, he spoke slowly. Wait. Look at the b-pawn. If white plays h6, black plays b5. If white plays h7, black plays b4. If white plays h8 queen, black plays b3, and then the black king goes to f5, supporting the pawn. The white king on a5 can't catch both threats. The white king and queen can't coordinate fast enough. This might actually work. On stage, Levon's face went completely white. His hand, which had been reaching confidently for the h-pawn, stopped in midair. He stared at the position. His mouth opened slightly. He had been so focused on his own plan. Push the pawn, make a queen, and win the game, that he had missed Elon's counterplay. He had missed that Elon's b-pawn could race just as fast as his own h-pawn. And now, if he continued with his plan, the position would become incredibly complex, maybe even drawn. The gymnasium went completely silent. You could hear the snow hitting the glass walls outside. You could hear people breathing. For 17 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The world held its breath. Levon's hand trembled. He looked up at Elon. Elon looked back. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, respect. Levon started calculating. His brain worked at full speed, running through variations. His coach Vladimir, sitting in the audience, was calculating too, his fingers twitching as if moving invisible pieces. The computers were going crazy. The evaluation swung wildly. And plus 2.5 became plus 0.8 became plus 0.3 became plus 0.1. The position had gone from white is winning to nobody knows what's happening. Levon calculated for 9 minutes. His face showed everything: doubt, surprise, respect, frustration, wonder. Finally, he made his decision. His hand moved forward. He pushed his h-pawn, h6. The pawn advanced, one square closer to becoming a queen. Elon responded immediately. His hand was steady now. All fear was gone. Only clarity remained. He pushed his b-pawn, b5. The race had begun. Levon played h7. The pawn was now just one move away from promotion. Elon played b4. His pawn raced forward. Levon played h8 equals q. His pawn reached the end of the board and transformed into a queen. A powerful new piece was born. Normally, this would be a winning advantage. A queen versus pawns should always win. But Elon's b-pawn was now on b4, just 4 squares from making its own queen. And Elon's king was perfectly placed on f5, supporting the pawn, controlling key squares, creating what's called a fortress in chess, a defensive setup that can't be broken even with extra material. Levon stared at the position. He had a queen. He had an extra pawn. But he couldn't win. Every line he calculated led to the same result: either stalemate, perpetual check, or an eventual drawn endgame where Elon's fortress held firm. The position was a theoretical draw, not because of any rule, but because both sides could force the game into positions where neither could make progress. Perfect defense equaling perfect attack. Levon calculated for 5 more minutes, trying to find the win, trying to find the breakthrough. But there wasn't one. The Elon had found the only defensive plan that worked. Against all odds, against all logic, against a Grandmaster rated 750 points higher, Elon had held the position. Slowly, Levon looked up. His eyes met Elon's. In that moment, something beautiful happened. Something that had never happened in a professional chess match of this magnitude. Levon stood up. He walked around the board slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silent hall. He extended his hand to Elon. "Draw," Levon said softly, but his voice carried through the microphones. "You played brilliantly. I offer a draw." Elon stood up. His legs were shaking. He could barely stand, but he took Levon's hand and shook it firmly. "Draw agreed," Elon said. The arbiter, Sigurdur Olafsson, stepped forward. His voice was formal, but you could hear emotion underneath. "The players have agreed to a draw. The match is drawn. The final result is 1/2 point to Mr. Aronian, 1/2 point to Mr. Musk." For 3 seconds, the room stayed completely silent. Time seemed frozen. Then, like thunder breaking, applause exploded. 3,000 people stood up at once. The sound was deafening. People were cheering, crying, shouting. Not because someone won, but because they had witnessed something impossible. Something beautiful. Something that reminded everyone why chess, why human thinking, still mattered. Some people were crying openly. Grown men and women with tears running down their faces. They had watched a man with no chance, who had trained for only 6 months, who should have been destroyed. He somehow hold a draw against one of the greatest chess players alive. In the commentary booth, Hikaru was speechless, literally speechless. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Kasparov was standing, applauding. The greatest chess player in history was applauding. "That," he said into his microphone, his voice full of emotion, "is why we play chess. That is why we teach chess. That is why chess will never die, because the human mind can still surprise us, can still find beauty where computers see only numbers." Maurice Ashley, standing backstage, had tears streaming down his face. He had trained Elon, believed in Elon, pushed Elon beyond what seemed possible. And Elon had delivered, not a win, something better. A draw that felt like victory because it represented 6 months of struggle, learning, growth, and refusing to give up. Ariane was crying too, but smiling. She was proud of her husband not for winning, but for creating this moment, for challenging Elon not out of cruelty, but out of love for chess, love for human thinking. The applause continued for 5 full minutes. Photographers captured images that would appear on front pages worldwide. Elon and Levon, standing together, hands clasped, both exhausted, both smiling, both understanding that something more important than winning or losing had just happened. But the real story was only beginning. After the applause finally died down, after the official photographs were taken, after the live stream ended and the cameras stopped rolling, Levon approached Elon quietly. The crowd was leaving Harpa Concert Hall slowly, still buzzing with excitement. He's still talking about the incredible game they had witnessed. "Can we talk?" Levon asked. "Somewhere private?" Elon nodded. His body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. His brain was completely exhausted. But something in Levon's voice told him this was important. They met in a small room backstage. It was simple, just a couch, 2 chairs, and a window overlooking the dark Reykjavik harbor. Snow fell heavily outside, covering everything in white silence. Maurice Ashley came with Elon. Ariane came with Levon. Both stayed quiet, understanding that this moment belonged to the 2 players. Levon sat down on the couch. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. He unwrapped it carefully. It was an old photograph, yellowed with age, the corners bent. "I need to show you something," Levon said. His voice was gentle, almost sad. He handed the photograph to Elon. Elon looked at it. His hands started shaking. His breath caught in his throat. The photograph showed 2 young men at a chess tournament. One held a trophy, a young man with dark hair and a proud smile. Next to him stood a skinny 22-year-old with nervous eyes and messy hair. That young man was Elon himself, 32 years younger, just graduated from university, about to leave South Africa forever. That's me," Elon whispered. "Johannesburg, 1993, the university tournament." His voice cracked. "I remember this day. I remember this moment." "And that's my cousin," Levon said quietly. "Areg Aronian. You played him in the semifinals. You lost, but you stayed afterward. You talked with him for hours. You helped him carry his bags to the bus station." Elon's eyes filled with tears. Real tears. Something the world almost never saw from Elon Musk. Memories flooded back. Memories he had buried for 3 decades because they were too painful to remember. That tournament had been 1 week before he left South Africa. 1 week before he escaped to America, leaving behind a country filled with difficult memories. His childhood had been hard. His father had been cruel. Home had never felt safe. He had been so alone during those years, so isolated. But that young chess player, Areg, he had been different. Kind. Understanding. They had talked about life, about dreams, about why building things mattered. Areg had seen something in Elon that Elon couldn't see in himself yet. Hope. Possibility. Fire. "I remember him," Elon said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was one of the few people who was kind to me during that time. He told me that chess was a language for people who didn't know how to talk about what hurt them. He understood." Levon handed him another piece of paper. "He wrote a letter about you, to my mother, 2 days after your game." Elon took the letter with trembling hands. It was old, the paper thin and fragile. The ink had faded, but was still readable. He read it slowly. "Dear Aunt Shushan, I won the Johannesburg Open today. But the most interesting game wasn't in the finals. It was against a young South African named Elon in the semifinals. He played beautifully. Not like a master, but with real imagination. After I beat him, he didn't leave angry. He stayed. We talked for 2 hours about life, about dreams, and about what makes existence meaningful. He's leaving South Africa soon, going to America. He wants to build important things, things that help humanity. He seemed sad about leaving home, but also relieved. I could tell something was difficult in his family. He didn't say much about it, but I could see pain in his eyes. He said chess reminded him that problems have solutions if you think hard enough. That the board was one place where things made sense, when nothing else did. We walked to the bus station together. He carried my trophy bag, even though he had just lost. Can you imagine? Such kindness from someone in pain. He has fire in his eyes, Auntie. Fire that won't go out. I hope he builds something amazing. I really do. The world needs people who refuse to give up. Love, Areg. When Elon finished reading, tears were streaming down his face. He couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. He just sat there, holding the letter, his whole body shaking. Areg died 2 years later, Levon said softly. Car accident, December 1995. He was only 26 years old. I was 13 then, just starting to take chess seriously. He was my hero, my inspiration, the reason I became a grandmaster. Elon wiped his eyes. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I lost touch with everyone from those days when I moved to America. I was trying to forget South Africa, trying to forget everything that hurt. I found this letter and photo after my mother died, Levon continued. In April this year, I was going through her belongings and discovered them in an old album. I had no idea you two had met. No idea Areg had seen something special in you. Maurice Ashley, who had been standing quietly by the window, spoke up gently. Is that why you challenged Elon? Because of your cousin? Levon nodded. Partly. When Elon's AI program, Prometheus 7, destroyed those grandmasters, destroyed me, I was angry. I felt like chess was dying. Like everything we worked for, everything we loved about the game was becoming meaningless. Just code, just algorithms, no heart, no humanity. He looked directly at Elon. But then, I found this letter and realized something. You used to understand. You used to know that chess was about more than winning, more than calculation. It was about being human, about struggling with your own mind, about connecting with another person across a board. And I thought, maybe you just forgot. Maybe you needed to be reminded. So you challenged me, Elon said quietly. Says not to humiliate me, to remind me. Yes, to remind both of us, to remind the world. Levon's voice was full of emotion. When everything becomes about AI and efficiency and optimization, we forget why thinking matters, why struggling matters, why being imperfect and emotional and human matters more than any algorithm. Elon was silent for a long moment. He looked at the photograph again. 2 young men, 2 people at the beginning of their journeys. One who would become a chess grandmaster. One who would build rockets and electric cars. Both connected by a game, by a moment of kindness, by recognition of shared humanity. That final move I played, Elon said slowly. King to G6. When I made it, I remembered something Maurice told me during training. But now I realize it was also something Areg taught me. Back in Johannesburg, he played that way, moving pieces to squares that looked wrong but felt right, creating beauty instead of just trying to win. Maurice spoke up, his voice warm. And you, Elon, you proved something tonight. That move? No computer would ever play it. It looked like suicide. But you saw something beyond calculation. You saw the spirit of the position. That's human chess. That's what makes us different from machines. That's what Areg saw in you 32 years ago. Ariane, who had been listening quietly, added, And Levon, you played the most beautiful chess I've ever seen you play. You weren't just trying to win. You were trying to create art. You were honoring Areg's memory. You both were. The 4 of them sat in silence. Outside, the snow continued falling on Reykjavik. Somewhere out there, 3 billion people were processing what they had witnessed. Social media was exploding with analysis, memes, commentary, emotion. Headlines were being written. History was being recorded. But in this small room, 4 people understood something deeper than any headline could capture. Elon and Levon weren't opponents. They had never really been opponents. They were partners in proving that human minds, imperfect, emotional, struggling, beautiful human minds could still create moments that transcended winning and losing. Moments that reminded everyone why consciousness, why thinking, why being alive and present and engaged with the world still mattered in an age of artificial intelligence. "Thank you," Elon said to Levon. His voice was hoarse from emotion. "For challenging me, for remembering Areg, for reminding me why any of this matters. And I built Neuralink to help human minds. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that human minds are already incredible, already worth celebrating, already enough." "Thank you," Levon said back, "for accepting the challenge, for training so hard, for showing the world that learning is beautiful, that struggling is beautiful, that being human, with all our limitations and emotions and imperfections, is what makes life worth living." They stood up. They shook hands again. But this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't two competitors. It was two people connected across decades, across continents, across a chessboard that had become a bridge instead of a battlefield. Elon looked at the photograph one more time. Can I get a copy of this? And the letter?" "You can have the originals," Levon said. "Areg would have wanted you to have them. He believed in you before you believed in yourself." Elon carefully folded the letter and held the photograph like it was made of glass. These pieces of paper suddenly felt more valuable than any rocket, any company, any amount of money. They were proof that kindness mattered, that connection mattered, that one moment of human understanding could echo across 3 decades and change everything. Maurice put a hand on Elon's shoulder. "You did good today, my friend. Really good." Ariane hugged Levon. "I'm proud of you, not for the draw, for everything else." They left the small room together and walked out into the snowy Reykjavik night. 4 people who understood that the real game had never been about 64 squares or 32 pieces. It had always been about something bigger, for something that computers would never understand, something human. The next morning, December 16th, 2025, the world woke up to a story it didn't expect. Elon sat in his hotel room at 6 a.m., unable to sleep. His body was exhausted, but his mind was racing. He opened his laptop and started reading the news. What he saw surprised him. The headlines didn't say what he had feared. They didn't say, "Elon Musk loses to Grandmaster," or "Tech billionaire embarrasses himself at chess." Instead, they said things that made his eyes water again. The most beautiful game ever played. The New York Times. When chess became art instead of war. The Guardian. 2 men reminded us why minds matter. Time magazine. The draw that felt like victory for humanity. BBC. Musk and Aronian show us what AI cannot replace. The Washington Post, CNN, had a headline that simply said, "The game that changed chess forever." Elon scrolled through social media. Twitter was flooded with the hashtag #HumanChess. Over 200 million tweets in 12 hours. Instagram had thousands of posts showing the final position, with people analyzing it, discussing it, celebrating it. TikTok videos of the final moments had been viewed 500 million times. But what surprised Elon most was the tone. People weren't mocking him for drawing instead of winning, and they were celebrating him for trying, for learning, for showing that struggle and growth mattered more than immediate success. One tweet that went viral said, "Elon Musk spent 6 months learning chess just to prove human minds still matter. That's more inspiring than any rocket launch." Another said, "My 8-year-old daughter watched the match. This morning she asked me to teach her chess. That's the real victory." A teacher from Chicago posted, My students watched Musk versus Aronian yesterday. Today, 23 of them signed up for chess club. We've never had more than 5 members before. Thank you for making thinking cool again. Chess websites had crashed multiple times during the night from traffic. Chess.com reported that new account registrations increased by 400% in 24 hours. Lichess, another popular chess site, had similar numbers. The chess clubs around the world were flooded with new members, adults and children alike, all wanting to learn the game that had captured the world's attention. Amazon had sold out of chess sets completely. Every major retailer reported the same thing. Chess books were flying off shelves. Streaming sites showed chess tutorial videos being watched millions of times. But the story was bigger than just chess. People were talking about artificial intelligence differently now. The conversation had shifted from humans versus machines to humans being more human. Technology commentators were writing articles about the importance of struggle, of learning, of embracing difficulty instead of always seeking efficiency. One article in Wired magazine said, "The Musk-Aronian match reminded us that the point of being human isn't to be perfect, and it's to be engaged, to think, to feel, to connect. I can calculate, but it can never struggle. And struggle, beautiful, difficult, human struggle, is what makes life meaningful." Back in Armenia, the entire country was celebrating. Schools had declared December 16th a national holiday for chess. Levon was being treated like a hero, not for winning, but for creating this moment. The Prime Minister gave a speech praising Levon for reminding the world that Armenian culture values beauty and humanity over mere victory. In South Africa, the story about Areg and the 1993 tournament had spread quickly. News outlets were interviewing people who had known Areg, sharing stories about the kind young chess player who had died too young. A memorial was being planned at the University of the Witwatersrand, where that fateful tournament had taken place. By noon Iceland time, Elon received a phone call. It was from the President of Iceland herself. "Mr. Musk," she said warmly, "on behalf of Iceland, I want to thank you and Mr. Aronian for what you gave us yesterday. It was more than a chess game. It was a reminder of what makes humanity special." "Thank you, Madam President," Elon said. He was genuinely moved. "We would like to create a permanent exhibit at Harpa Concert Hall," she continued. "The board you played on, photographs from the match, video recordings. We want future generations to remember this moment. Would you agree to that?" "Yes," Elon said. "Absolutely yes." Later that day, Elon held a press conference. Reporters from 40 countries crowded into a room at his hotel. Cameras flashed. Questions came rapid fire. But Elon seemed different than usual. Calmer, more thoughtful, less defensive. "Mr. Musk, how does it feel to draw against a grandmaster?" one reporter asked. Elon thought for a moment. "It feels like I learned something important. Not just about chess, about being human, about the value of struggle. I spent 6 months training my mind, not to beat Levon, but to understand something I had forgotten. That thinking, real, deep, difficult thinking, is beautiful. That learning is beautiful. That being imperfect and trying anyway is beautiful." Another reporter asked, "Will you continue playing chess?" "Yes," Elon said. "Not professionally, but for joy, for the experience of using my mind. And I'm going to make some changes at my companies. At Neuralink, we're creating a new division focused not on replacing human thinking, but on celebrating it. Our first project will be a chess program that doesn't just calculate moves. It will explain the beauty and story behind each position. It will teach chess as art, not just science." A third reporter asked about the $5 million prize money. Levon and I already discussed this, Elon said. We're both donating our shares. Levon is creating the Areg Aronian Memorial Chess Foundation, teaching chess to children in Armenia, South Africa, and Iceland, the three countries connected by this story. I'm matching his donation and adding funds for chess programs in low-income schools across America and Europe. In total, we're putting $15 million toward chess education. The reporters erupted with more questions, but Elon held up his hand. One more thing, he said. Yesterday, Levon showed me something I didn't know. 32 years ago, I played chess against his cousin Areg in South Africa. Areg was kind to me during a very difficult time in my life. He saw potential in me when I couldn't see it myself. He died young, but his kindness echoed across 3 decades. It changed everything. That's what I want people to remember about yesterday. Not the chess moves, the human connection, the kindness, the reminder that we need each other. His voice cracked slightly on those last words. The reporters noticed. This wasn't the usual Elon Musk. Confident, aggressive, always certain. This was someone who had been changed by an experience. Someone who had learned something real. Across town, Levon was doing his own press conference. He spoke about Areg, about the importance of beauty in chess, and about why human thinking mattered in an age of artificial intelligence. People ask me if I'm disappointed I didn't win, Levon said. I'm not, because winning wasn't the point. The point was to create something beautiful together. Elon and we collaborated across the board yesterday. Yes, we were opponents, but we were also partners in creating a game that reminded people why chess matters, why thinking matters, why being human matters. A reporter asked if he would ever play Elon again. Levon smiled. We play online sometimes now, just for fun. Sometimes I win, sometimes he wins. Mostly we draw, but it doesn't matter. We're not keeping score anymore. We're just two people who enjoy thinking together. 3 months passed. March 2026 arrived. Spring was coming to the Northern Hemisphere. In Johannesburg, South Africa, a statue was unveiled at the University of the Witwatersrand. It showed 2 young men sitting at a chessboard. One was clearly Areg Aronian, his face captured from the 1993 photograph. The other figure was more abstract, representing every young player who ever struggled, learned, and grew through the game. Elon and Levon both attended the ceremony. They stood together as the statue was revealed, both with tears in their eyes. The plaque at the base read, "Chess, where minds meet across time." In memory of Areg Aronian, 1969 to 1995, who understood that kindness is the greatest victory. Elon placed flowers at the base, white and purple blooms, the colors of Armenia. Maurice Ashley wrote a book about the experience called The Mind Remembers: 6 Months That Changed Chess. It became an international bestseller and translated into 42 languages. But it wasn't really a chess book. It was about learning, about humility, about choosing to be vulnerable and grow even when the world was watching. Schools around the world added the book to their curriculum. Not for chess classes, for life classes. In Armenia, the Areg Aronian Memorial Chess Foundation opened its first center in Yerevan. Levon taught the first class himself. 30 children from low-income families, all eager to learn. He started by telling them about his cousin, about kindness, about how chess was more than just a game. In California, Elon kept his promise. Neuralink's new division launched Chess Poet, an AI program that analyzed games not just for best moves, but for beauty, for storytelling, for the human drama in each position. When you played against it, it didn't just crush you, it taught you. It showed you why moves were beautiful or interesting. It made you fall in love with thinking. The program became hugely popular in schools. Teachers reported that students who used Chess Poet didn't just get better at chess, they got better at thinking in general, at problem solving, at understanding that struggle and failure were part of learning. More importantly, something had shifted in how the world talked about artificial intelligence. The panic about AI replacing humans had decreased, not because AI had stopped advancing, but because people remembered that being human wasn't about being the best at calculating. It was about experiencing, connecting, struggling, growing, and finding meaning. And the match in Reykjavik had reminded everyone of something they had forgotten. Humans weren't in competition with AI. Humans were on a different journey entirely. A journey that included imperfection, emotion, connection, and the beautiful struggle of consciousness trying to understand itself. Elon and Levon became genuine friends. They visited each other's families. They played chess regularly, sometimes online, sometimes in person. They talked about life, about philosophy, about what mattered. One evening, playing a casual game in Elon's house in Texas, Levon asked, "Do you ever regret accepting my challenge?" Elon thought for a moment. He looked at the photograph of young Ereg and young Elon that now hung on his wall. "No," he said quietly. "It was the most important thing I've done in years. Not landing rockets, not building cars, on learning chess, remembering why my mind matters, remembering that I'm human." "Me too," Levon said. "Thank you for saying yes." They continued their game in comfortable silence, two minds meeting across a board, creating beauty that would never be perfect, but was perfect precisely because it was human. 1 year later, December 2026, Elon stood at a grave in Yerevan, Armenia. The cemetery was old, filled with centuries of Armenian history. Stone crosses carved with intricate patterns rose from the snow-covered ground. Mount Ararat was visible in the distance, its peak glowing pink in the winter sunset. The grave belonged to Areg Aronian. Levon had invited Elon to visit Armenia for the anniversary of their famous match. But more importantly, to visit this place, and to pay respects to the man who had connected them across 3 decades without either of them knowing. They stood together in the cold, their breath making clouds in the freezing air. Levon held flowers, small white and purple blooms that somehow survived the harsh Armenian winter. Traditional flowers for remembering the dead. They laid the flowers gently on the grave. The headstone was simple. It showed Areg's name, his dates, 1969 to 1995, and a small carved chess piece, a knight, the piece that always finds unexpected paths. "He would have loved that you came back to chess," Levon said quietly. His voice was soft, respectful of the silence around them. "Not for winning, not for fame, just for playing, just for thinking." "I think he knew something I forgot," Elon replied. He was staring at the headstone, and his hands deep in his coat pockets. That the point of thinking isn't to beat others or to prove you're smart. It's to connect, to create, to remember you're human. They stood in silence for a long time. Snow began falling softly, tiny flakes that caught the dying sunlight and sparkled like stars. Around them, other graves held other stories, grandmothers and grandfathers, children who had died too young, soldiers from forgotten wars. All of them had lived. All of them had mattered. All of them had been human. "I've been thinking about that game," Elon said after a while. "The move I made, king to g6, everyone called it genius. But you know what it really was? What? Levon asked. Faith. Faith that struggling was more important than winning. Faith that thinking for myself mattered more than playing it safe. A faith that being human, imperfect, uncertain, vulnerable, was enough. Elon's voice cracked slightly. Areg taught me that in 1993. I just forgot. You helped me remember. Levon put a hand on Elon's shoulder. He taught me too, through you, through that letter. He taught me that chess isn't about destroying your opponent. It's about creating beauty together, about two minds struggling with the same puzzle and discovering something neither could find alone. They stood together as darkness fell completely over Yerevan. The city lights began twinkling below them. Somewhere down there, in the Areg Aronian Memorial Chess Foundation building, 30 children were learning chess. Learning to think. Learning that their minds mattered. Learning that struggling with difficult problems was how you became fully alive. Do you know what my biggest fear was? Elon asked suddenly. Before the match? What? That I would lose, and everyone would laugh. That I would look stupid. That people would say I was just a businessman pretending to think. Elon laughed, but it was a sad laugh. I spent my whole life trying to prove I was smart enough. Building rockets to prove it. Building cars to prove it. Building brain-computer interfaces to prove it. But chess? Chess stripped all that away. It was just me and a board. No team, no engineers, no technology, just my mind. And I was terrified that my mind wouldn't be enough. But it was enough, Levon said. Not because I drew, Elon said. Because I tried. Because I struggled. Because I let 3 billion people watch me be imperfect and uncertain and human. That was more important than any rocket I've ever launched. Levon nodded. I was afraid too. Afraid that I was wrong. That maybe human chess was dead. That maybe computers had won, and there was nothing left for us. But you proved me wrong. We proved each other wrong. We proved that human minds, struggling, imperfect, emotional human minds, can still create moments that matter. Moments that change people. Moments that remind everyone why consciousness is worth celebrating. A caretaker appeared from the cemetery office, an old man with a kind face. He spoke in Armenian to Levon. Levon nodded and replied. The caretaker left. He says the cemetery is closing, Levon explained. We should go, but we can come back tomorrow if you want. Yes, Elon said. I'd like that. As they walked back through the cemetery, on past rows of graves telling silent stories, Elon asked, Do you think Areg knew? Back in 1993? Did he know that one conversation, one act of kindness, would echo this far? Levon thought about this. No, I don't think he knew. That's the beautiful thing about kindness. You never know how far it will travel. You never know who you're really helping. You just do it because it's right. Because connection matters. Because we need each other. They reached the cemetery gates. The old caretaker locked them behind them with an ancient key. They walked down the hill toward the city, where Ariane was waiting for them at a restaurant. She had spent the day with Maurice Ashley, who had also come to Armenia for the anniversary. Tomorrow, all 4 of them would visit schools together, teaching chess, telling stories, inspiring children. But right now, in this moment, walking through snowy Yerevan streets, Elon and Levon were just 2 friends. 2 people connected by a game, by a memory, by a young man who had died 31 years ago, but whose kindness still echoed through time. Elon reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small object. It was a chess piece, a knight from the set they had used in Reykjavik. Levon had given it to him after the match. Knights always find unexpected paths. Levon had said. Elon carried this knight everywhere now. In his pocket during rocket launches, during Tesla board meetings, during Neuralink presentations. It reminded him of something important, something that was easy to forget in the rush of building companies and changing the world. It reminded him that thinking wasn't just a tool for solving problems. So thinking was how humans connected with each other across time and space, how they understood themselves, how they stayed human in a world that kept forgetting why that mattered. The final move, he realized, wasn't made on the board in Reykjavik. The final move wasn't king to G6, however brilliant or crazy that had been. The final move was this: choosing to remember, choosing to connect, choosing to be vulnerable and imperfect and human, choosing to honor the people who had been kind to you, even if they were gone, choosing to pass that kindness forward to others, choosing to struggle with difficult things, not because you would win, but because the struggle itself made you more fully alive. That move, that choice, wasn't a chess move at all. It was a life move. And unlike the chess game in Reykjavik, this move would never end. And it would continue every day, every moment, every time someone chose connection over isolation, kindness over cruelty, struggle over comfort, humanity over efficiency. Elon looked up at the night sky. Stars were appearing between the clouds. Somewhere up there, his rockets flew. Somewhere down here, his cars drove. Somewhere in labs, his brain-computer interfaces were helping paralyzed people move again. All of that mattered. All of that was important. But none of it mattered as much as this: being a human being who remembered what a young Armenian chess player had taught him 33 years ago in Johannesburg. That minds meet across time. That kindness echoes forever. That we need each other. They reached the restaurant. Warm light spilled from the windows. Inside, Ariane and Maurice were laughing about something, sharing wine, being alive and present and connected. Levon opened the door. "Coming?" Elon took one last look at the stars. Then he smiled and followed his friend inside, into the warmth, into the light, into the messy, beautiful, imperfect reality of being human. The game was over. But the real move, the move that mattered most, was just beginning. And it would continue as long as people remembered to think, to struggle, to connect, and to celebrate the extraordinary gift of consciousness that made all of it possible. The real final move was choosing to stay human. Always choosing to stay human. And that move, unlike any game, would never reach checkmate. It would continue forever, passed from mind to mind, generation to generation, person to person, like a flame that could never be extinguished as long as someone remembered to carry it forward. And Elon Musk, standing in a restaurant in Yerevan, Armenia, 1 year after a chess match that changed his life, holding a small knight in his pocket like a talisman, finally understood what that meant. So now, you know the truth. The chess match was never about winning. It was about remembering what makes us human. About how one moment of kindness in 1993 changed 2 lives forever. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments right now. I love seeing our community from all around the world. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. It helps spread this message of kindness to more people who need to hear it. And subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories that remind us what truly matters in life. The world needs more kindness, more connection, and more moments that remind us we're all human together. By sharing this video, you're passing that forward. And speaking of incredible stories, there's another one waiting for you on the screen right now. Click it. Trust me, you won't regret it. Thanks for watching. Keep thinking. Keep connecting. keep being beautifully human.